It is the final word. It's the Australia-India Daily. It's the Border Gavaskar Daily. It's whatever combination of words you want it to be daily. It's the Geoff Lemon and Adam Collins Daily. It's the CBUS Super Daily. Sort out your superannuation. cbussuper.com.au. We all know past performance is not a reliable indicator of future performance. We all know that applies to cricket as much as superannuation. There's a bit to talk about on a rainy day 5. You can see, if you're watching the video, the rain pouring down behind us here in Brisbane. But Adam, you have to tell me about an eventful day of Test cricket in 30 seconds.
Yeah, not even a session again. The longest test is over at last, and it's a stalemate. But plenty happened today. Australia did what they needed to do. India had a 185-run deficit on the first innings. Australia decided to go for it. Not at the start, but at the end they did. 7 for 89 declared. They set 275 for India, who got 2 overs into their chase, theoretical as it was, before the rain continued to tumble, and they called it off early, and Ashwin retired.
Ashwin retired.
He
Just
did.
bury the lead. Do that at the end.
Well, we can do it. Why don't we do this? Why don't we say as much as we need to say about Ashwin right now, and then we'll do a proper episode about Ashwin tomorrow in our wrap-up show that we will always do on day 6 of the Border Gavaskar Test.
We do a day 6 show, and I think it can only be about Ravichandran Ashwin, one of the greats, one of our favourites. But today we heard rumblings, we heard whisperings, we heard a big retirement was going to happen, a big career was going to end, and it could have been a few, could have been Kohli, could have been Rohit, could have been somebody back in India, could have been Mohammad Shami crocked with his injuries. There are a few possibilities, but Ashwin bowing out after 3 tests of a series in which he's been picked for 1 test, it feels pointed to me that he's decided to pull the pin now, when you would have expected him to be available for the last 2 tests. A long pattern of not being used overseas much. I would say not enough. I would say pretty much any Indian side of the last 7 or 8 years should have had Jadeja and Ashwin in it as default, because why not? They can both bat, they can both bowl. We saw what Jadeja brought to this side coming back into it with the bat. Even when he bowled badly, he had the other string to his bow, and he saved the test match for them effectively after KL Rahul did it. So I don't know if Ashwin is frustrated. I can't project, but I can understand why he would be if he was.
Well, there was just a statement tonight, and I saw him briefly as well downstairs in the bottom of the Gabba where we were doing our end-of-play radio stuff, and he looks emotional, as you would. 106 test matches, 537 wickets at 24, an extraordinary record against Australia, especially going all the way back to when he first played in India against them in 2013, when he really bossed that series with Jadeja in partnership. And again, that partnership with Jadeja is something that we'll doubtless talk about tomorrow. There's been comparisons made to when Dhoni retired mid-series in 2014. The difference there was that India had lost the series and Dhoni was still running the show, broadly speaking. This is not that. Ashwin's out of the team. Maybe he was told that he wouldn't be playing at Melbourne, wouldn't be playing at Sydney, and he's decided to literally pack his bag and go home, and he's leaving for India tomorrow. So he's not going to be sticking around the way that Dhoni did in 2014 for that final test match, or in this case the final 2 test matches. So yeah, I'm sure there'll be more to play out. We'll try and gather as much intelligence as we can before we talk about it in more detail. But that was the biggest news point out of today, that Ashwin is no more as a test cricketer. Throw on top of that 3,500 test runs with half a dozen hundreds, 14 other scores above 50. He's been the thorn in the side of many teams, especially Australia, but he won't be there in England next year. He won't be at the World Test Championship final if they are to make the decider. And we won't see him again in this form of the game, which is really sad, because I sort of feel like my instinct is that he had more to give. But anyway, we'll have another frolic on that tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it is desperately sad. I'm sad that the last time I got to watch him play Test cricket was in such a short game in Adelaide, the pink ball test, where he didn't really get to show us what he could do. What he could do, what he can do, could have been so useful on those tracks in Melbourne and Sydney, where they can suit a spinner, particularly an accurate spinner, particularly one who gets some bounce. I mean, he's someone who's been so competitive against this team. So I just feel really deflated by it, honestly. I wanted to see him at least go to 600 test wickets and keep the tussle going with Nathan Lyon for longer. But the game we've got today, I mean, we have to look at that. We lost most of the first session. They went off the field for lightning before it started raining. All the camera operators had to go off. All the ground staff had to go off. And then the rain came. And then they got to lunch, and then they took lunch early and finally got back after that early lunch break. Yeah,
it's almost impossible to stitch together when the delays happened and why they were, but you're right. One of them was for lightning after they picked up the 1 wicket they needed. The last one was Akashdeep for 31. What a performance from him, by the way. Coming in, helping them avoid the follow-on, adding some more runs this morning. His first test match against Australia, it absolutely won't be his last. Jasprit Bumrah spoke about India's bowling group being in transition at the press conference the other night. I've almost no doubt that Akashdeep's going to be part of that important transition. And just one more nugget from downstairs with Rohit Sharma. He got asked about Shami, and he's like, well, he said something to the effect of, well, I need an update from the NCA.
Right.
Jokingly, a big smile on his face. He goes, when they give me an update, I'll be able to give you an update about Shami's fitness, where he's recuperating at the academy at the moment. So, and he said the door's open. He said they won't play him unless he's 100% fit.
Yep.
But if they think he is and they send him here, he's going to be someone he considers for selection. So, given that kind of language, my instinct is that we won't see him at Melbourne. But what an arrival that'd be if you saw, Mohamed Shami walking in to fight the heavyweight bout if the series is still, it will be live at Sydney one way or the other. But I mean, imagine it's, a draw at Melbourne and they go 1-1 to Sydney and in comes Shami with all to play for. That'd be fun.
Yes, and if things have panned out differently, I suppose with India, had they not avoided the follow-on, then there probably wouldn't have been enough time to bowl him out a second time anyway with all of the interruptions, but they didn't know that at the time. It was so vital what Akashdeep is. Maybe they don't need Shami if they've got Akashdeep playing as well as he has. Maybe, they are losing a bowler in Ashwin, so they could replace him with it, even though with a different style of bowler in Shami, I suppose. But I don't know if this squad desperately needs Shami at the moment, although having someone who could help Bumrah, who could be as incisive or as difficult to get away at the other end as Shami can be, would be important. I just don't know if he could come in and do that first test.
I mean, I like the idea of him doing it. It'd be bloody exciting, but I don't think the dice is sort of stacked that way. What I do know is that Bumrah is untouchable. I mean, 3 more today in that brief spell of his. He bowled 6 overs, 3 for 18. Went through Khawaja with pace, and Khawaja caught on the crease.
Again.
I say caught on the crease, playing away from his body, not a lot of footwork. Acknowledging that there's never been heaps of footwork with Khawaja. It's never really been a huge flaw of his because he compensates with amazing hands. But 10:38 today, impossible to avoid the fact that he's batted 16 times in Test cricket this year for score above 50. Happy birthday, Usman. Sorry it didn't go as well as you would have liked. Marnus Labuschagne and Nathan McSweeney both playing bad shots, ugly shots to get out. Caught behind the wicket, neither with a lot of footwork.
Just pokey sort of cut shots.
Yeah, and look, I understand what some will say, which will be that in both instances they were only looking to bat for a short time, so they might have been trying to move the board along in ways they ordinarily wouldn't from balls they would typically be leaving. But then there's a bit of a mixed communication there, because some of the other lines out of the camp that were getting sent to some of the journos is that they were laying a bit of a foundation first and working out where they were at, then they were going to have a dart at it. So they would have been better off, as Ian Healy said on our coverage, just having a dart at it full stop. And recalibrating their batting lineup in more ways than just Mitchell Marsh jumping to number 4. That was the only bit that they did until they started swinging, and that was more with Carey and Cummins and Head, who, and by that point, at one point they were 5 for 33.
This is the thing. So getting into today, I mean, today was shambolic. 5 for 33, I mean, that's a serious kind of collapse. And that's getting to the point where it starts to be embarrassing, right? Where a team is really in disarray at that stage. Now, Australia, they kind of managed to reshape it by declaring later on. So they pull out the declaration.
They reframed it,
And so it goes, okay, well, they were attacking, they were looking for fast runs. You know who got out playing attacking shots looking for fast runs? Travis Head and Pat Cummins. They're the only 2 who were having a big swing and ended up getting caught or whatever it was that way. The other 5 got out in the regular kind of ways. I've just been writing about this downstairs. They got out in the ways that they've been getting out all through the series. Labuschagne's been flirting outside the off stump through the series. Last 2 innings got out that way, chasing wide balls. That's not different. That's not new.
McSweeney's was a
maybe.
McSweeney's the one I'll give a mulligan to on this, because he's left so many balls. He's been so disciplined outside the line. I'm willing to acknowledge that maybe he was caught in 2 minds a wee bit.
I think so, but I think he's been caught in 2 minds throughout most of his time as an opener. He's been trying to find a way, and today felt like a trying to find a way shot.
And that's been generous to them, by the way. I mean, ultimately, this, I think, has more to do with the fact that, McSweeney got out to Akashdeep, but Bumrah is just creating, they're not scoring runs off him either. No. He's got 20 wickets at 10 in this series. So he's creating pressure at both ends. They're trying to see him off, and that makes sense, right? Like, we have spoken about it at length on the podcast, that, and Usman Khawaja said it to us last week in Adelaide, a big part of the story for Australia is getting through the Bumrah spells and opening up the world of opportunity at the other end. But getting through Bumrah at the moment, it's nigh on impossible. Every spell he bowls up top is getting some degree of success.
Depends who you are. If you're Travis Head, you walk in and smack him for 2 4s in the first over you face from him.
Right.
Because Travis Head was like, Bumrah, whatevs. I face him in T20 cricket all the time. No worries. There was the cut shot. There was a one through mid wicket, and then the slash behind point in the first over that Head faced. So, but the other players are different. Khawaja, like you say, they're getting caught on the crease thing, but he's also hopping. He's like on his toes. He's got out to Bumrah a bunch of times with both feet off the ground. He was kind of hopping a bit again today because he can't get on top of the bounce. It seems like it's quick for him. There was a little inside edge, so he gets bowled.
And he probably, let's just deal with the Khawaja in isolation, because he's 38 today, and like his story is a glorious one. His return to the Aussie team 3 years ago, he made more runs in the world than anybody in 2022. Continued that through to 2023. The big 100 at Ahmedabad, the crucial Ashes winning performance at Edgbaston, or Ashes Test match defining performance at Edgbaston.
But that's his last 100.
But if it turns out, and since then the returns have been minimal, and this is his second bad summer in a row. And if it turns out that Khawaja...
Like, I think up until the last 10 innings. Like, last summer he made a bunch of useful scores. He was making 40s, he made a 70, he made a 90. He was making helpful scores, but he wasn't making big scores.
That's it. So when you bring it into 2024...
since New Zealand, basically. Since
New Zealand, well, it goes back a little bit further than that, but still, taken as a whole, Khawaja is now at the stage where this could end in a hurry. I'm not saying they like to back players to the hilt with this team, but it's within the realms of possibility that Khawaja, if he doesn't make runs at Melbourne, that might be it at Sydney. And again, I think I made this point about Smith a couple of nights ago on the podcast. If it turns out that is the case, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Like, I get really kind of. And if they decide to make a change with Sam Constance as well, by the way, who batted beautifully in the Big Bash last night, if they make a structural change and shoehorn him into the team because he's the man with the hot hand, that's okay as well. Yep. If they did it at the expense of Marnus Labuschagne, if they form the view that his runs last week were the outlier and that taken as a whole, they're diminishing returns and he needs to be taken out of this particular series, that doesn't mean Labuschagne's career is over. That doesn't mean he's been sacked. That means that at the moment they've formed the view that Constance is more likely to make a contribution next week than Labuschagne is.
When you need
it's more a balanced, measured approach to these types of big, potentially life-changing decisions for people that they have to make. And can they afford to be as exposed as they are right now to Bumrah up top with a series that is so very much alive, going to a pitch which has given more to fast bowlers in the last 4 test matches there, maybe 3, whichever it was when they changed the ball and changed the deck and got better and better, than pretty much anywhere around the country. It's not going to get any easier to face Bumrah next week with the new ball, that's for certain.
Yeah, people who are thinking that Melbourne's going to be flat, it ain't like that anymore. So I think if you're looking at Australian innings today, that did damage to Australia, even though it was in a pointless kind of situation, and it didn't matter really in terms of the game because we were always likely to get washed out. Khawaja, another low score. Add that, he's had a bad series. Labuschagne, another low score. He's had a bad series, broadly speaking. McSweeney, another low score. He's had an uneventful series, and it hasn't worked basically. He's done jobs in specific little moments of time here and there. The evening session at Adelaide and so on.
I think,
but it hasn't worked as a body of work so far. It's not convincing. Not to say you have to stop it now, but he needs to produce something pretty soon.
Yeah, he needs another go. Right. I think McSweeney, because 2 tests ago at Adelaide, he was vital to Australia being in the position they were. So you don't get dropped off.
I'm not saying this is the end of it.
No, not at all.
I'm saying it's a sequence. It's another problem in a sequence of problems.
Right. I think Mitch Marsh is also one that goes under the radar.
So the first 5 are all here. Mitch Marsh is another one. Last summer, crucial, makes runs in all 3 Pakistan tests. Key player. They would have lost 2 of them basically without his runs. And importantly in New Zealand as well. You sort of forget that he makes vital runs in that second innings in Christchurch that helps set it up for Carey to win it. He has a big partnership with Green in Wellington as well. So he had 2 important hands there. So he's just had a bad series so far. It's not like he's had a long drought, but he's not bowling. We keep getting sort of fed this bullshit from the Australian camp that, no, he's fine to bowl and he's an all-rounder. Hazelwood goes down, bowls 6 overs in the test, and Mitchell Marsh bowls 2 overs. Clearly, they don't trust him with fitness-wise to bowl. They don't want him to bowl. So another low score for him and another low score for Smith, which wouldn't be a problem, after his first innings 100, except for the way he gets out, which is the same one, the leg side. I mean, he's got out so many times like that, so many times behind square on the leg side. He had the shoulders coming around, square onto the ball, closed off, all of the things that have been problems. So he gets out to the same problem in the same way. So it sets up all 5 of those players to be under more pressure in Melbourne, and it sets up India. I mean, great result for India, really. Like, they won day 5 because all of their bowlers are feeling good at the moment. Bumrah's still on top of the world. Akashdeep's got a couple of wickets after being frustrated in the first, and Siraj picks up a couple as well. So their quicks are all feeling better about life.
Just to go through those things in order, I think with Marsh, I'm not sure that it was not trusting him to bowl. I think it's more they had a million rain delays. So they got the chance to kind of regroup time and time again. I asked Mitchell Stark about it in an interview just before then, and that was his impression as well. But it'll be interesting now that it'll be Boland, obviously, at the MCG. If they get a lot of overs in the legs, we are looking to see what happens with Mitch Marsh. I think we're all looking in that direction. It was an obvious question out of yesterday's day in the field. Why he didn't bowl more, and that, I guess that gets put to one side now. But ultimately, he's there as a number 6. His runs are more important than his wickets. He made 500 of them at 45 last summer. The only Aussie player to make it to that juncture, to average 40 or to make 500 plus runs. That's across the full season, including the 2 test matches in New Zealand that you referred to before. So there's Mitch Marsh, who in 2024 alone, it's the 2 scores in New Zealand, and that's it, right? And they've got Cameron Green coming back probably mid-year. Between times, when we're thinking about Sri Lanka, I do think it's getting to the point where Marsh is going to have no choice but to make a contribution with the bat in Melbourne or Sydney, because Beau Webster doesn't just bat, he also bowls seam up and he also bowls spin. The triple threat that he presents to maybe bowl a little bit of seam up at the start of a Sri Lankan innings and give Pat Cummins the flexibility of only playing himself as the sole seamer could be irresistible if Marsh doesn't start making runs again. That's that. And with India, you know, we look for turning points in 5 test match series all the time. You can kind of identify in 4 and 5 test match series where the tide has turned. And we've had a couple of them already, but it may well be that Akashdeep and Jasprit Bumrah avoiding the follow-on and getting the claws in this weird final day could be what we look back on at the end of the series. And if it is, then that is, on a couple of fronts, something that Australia could have avoided. They could have taken the more conservative option, seen on the radar what everybody else in the world saw, which was there was enormous rain coming around the time that it did arrive. The probability of them getting 68 overs in was absolutely fanciful, and they could have batted for that 18-over period, which would have become a 20-over period, and reached 2 for 57, and it's a very, very different conversation right now. And India haven't got their claws into Australia again. Now it's Bumrah yet again, as it was after Perth, and Australia's top order on the back foot again. So there's an individual case-by-case thing, but there's also an overarching tactical question about today. Did they miss a trick by not playing the big game, the big picture about a 5 test match series? What did they give away?
What did they gain today? And any time you, as a bowling team, have a team 5 for 30, you're feeling pretty bloody good about yourselves.
And they had India 5 for 74, right? I mean, they had the chance to completely press home the advantage yesterday. It would have been 5 for 51 had they caught KL Rahul first ball. So it's not like this whole week's been a misadventure. They had a 185 run first innings lead, 2 centuries in the bank. Stark bowled beautifully, but losing, and Cummins did some great things as well. But losing Hazelwood as they have, which is a huge issue for them into the future, because of course how important Hazelwood's been in the last little while. And I come back to it again, the fact that India will now leave this draw thinking, fuck, we did okay there last couple of days, didn't we?
Yep, they will be buoyant, and they'll need to be buoyant because it's an actual river going down Vulture Street where we are recording. Before we get to the break, Maurice Blackburn, Australia's number 1 plaintiff law firm. They never lose 5 for on the last day. They're never 5 for 30. They're always they play sensibly, and they represent the working people of Australia when they need representation in the courts.
They show the same spirit as the Indian team showed in this test match. Back against the wall stuff. If you're someone in that boat who requires assistance legally, something that happens at work or something like that, most of the time no win, no fee. A long history back to 1919 of being there on behalf of working people. They may well be the law firm for you. In our humble opinion, they are indeed the law firm for you. Great supporters of what we're doing here on The Final Word throughout the course of the Border Gavaskar series. All their information is in the show notes. Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, Australia's number 1 plaintiff law firm. Geoff, let's go to the break, and when we return, we will go to our Hall of Fame, and then we'll say goodbye from the Gabba.
The Final Word Daily. Australia, India, the 3rd test, day 5 of the 3rd test. The only way you get to day 5 now is to have it rain and rain and rain. It won't be raining at the Kabaddi. There will be no breaks for rain at the Kabaddi. John Cain Arena, got a roof. Across from the MCG, doesn't have a roof. If it's raining at the MCG, you'd go across the road to John Cain Arena, to the tennis joint, the basketball joint, wherever they do rectangular court things, because Kabaddi is a rectangular court thing. If you don't know what it is, it's an Indian sport where there's a lot of tackling, a lot of chasing, a lot of tagging, all the things that people like. They've got the Indian All-Star team playing the Australian team that's being assembled out of recently retired footballers who are still fit and ready to get tackled into the ground. They still want to get smashed. They still want to feel body on body, and that'll be happening on the 28th. I'm getting emotional. I'm getting choked up.
I've never thought to ask this, but it might be like when they had the chapel stands at Adelaide Oval, that temporary stand that lasted for a number of years, and it's called the chapel stand now, isn't it? Adelaide Oval.
Big one, yeah.
Is this John Cain Arena, which captures both senior and junior? Senior, who was premier between 52 and 55, and junior, who did the job for 8 years between 1982 and 1990.
Could be. Is it John Cain's Arena?
John Cain, there you go.
Governors General.
Yeah, Governors General, John Cain's Arena. John Maynard Keynes Arena. Just to take that one stretch further.
Okay.
But, you know, as you said, what I meant to do today was to go away and find out whether there's been any crossover artists between cricket and kabaddi. I don't know the answer. Tell me in the YouTube comments, tell me on social media. Has anyone been a top flight cricketer and a top flight kabaddi player? Because there are many Australian rules footballers who are taking that challenge. And there are many
Australian rules footballers who are also cricketers. So they will become cricketers who were kabaddi players.
There you go.
But were there any Indian stars? Did Robin Uthappa get into the kabaddi? You know,
and if he didn't, why the fuck not?
Did Brijesh Patel, second mention?
Is the reason why Mohammed Shami is at the NCA and not out here in Australia? Is he really preparing to be in Melbourne for the 28th of December? Is he going to walk out stage left and go, not bothering about the G, I'm at John Cain Arena, John Cain Senior Arena.
Imagining that.
If not for the DLP split, I'd still be Premier.
DJ hits the button, they go, wait a minute, that's Mohammed Shami's music. And then he comes through onto the kabaddi court, ready to tag, ready to tackle, ready to be tackled.
Come with us, 28th, we're going to be there. Are you going to be there? Let us know. Kabaddi. Final Word Hall of Fame is the most final word moment of the day. Jeff, do you have anything, or am I going to take the lead here?
But you've probably got multiple, so why don't you tell me one of them?
I just wanted to... How come we're allowed to take lunch within 30 minutes of an interval? How come we're allowed to take lunch 90 minutes into a day in other parts of the world, but why not in this test match? On 2 occasions, myriad delays, and it's hard to document all of them. But today, it was good as gold to take lunch at 11:50 and therefore return at 12:30, right? And that would have, because the ground was ready to go at 12:30. Instead, we delayed it to midday. The same thing happened yesterday. Why did we wait why did we run all the way up till 20 minutes before, not 30 minutes before? Is that a midday thing? Is that
I don't know.
Keeping up appearances thing about lunch?
Can't have lunch before 12.
We can't deign to have lunch before the clock strikes.
Otherwise, it's brunch.
High noon.
It's brunch.
We could have had a brunch break today. We could have had one yesterday. So that's a point of frustration.
If Richard Kettleborough were walking out with a mimosa, then at 11:50, then you would know it was brunch.
Well, I'm sure Ranjay Madagale, who officiated in his 220th match as match referee this week, maybe we get him on the podcast one day.
Loves a mimosa.
What a satisfying name to say. And the match referee, Ranjan Madagale.
Madagale.
Anyway.
Got a mimosa in each hand, bottomless mimosas. They're going around. He likes the Bellini, the sparkling with a little bit of peach syrup in there. It's got that sort of continental feel.
He's got that view that Australia is no longer defined by its smash avo as much as it is its chili scrambled eggs.
Totally.
If you're a cafe worth anything now, it's all about your chili scrambled eggs. So Ranjan Madagale's got views on that.
And the smashed avocado has gone around the world. Everybody has realised it's a good... I mean, I'm just going to say others got there first. Guacamole is smashed avocado, right? Like, others were onto that. It's like, we invented salted caramel. No, you didn't. We've had Snickers bars for 80 years. That's salted caramel. We've invented smashed avocado. Guacamole. South Americans, Mexicans, they've had that for hundreds of years.
Can I ask one more question about this? I've been having brunch in Australia for the last few weeks since I arrived here. When did we stop calling it Eggs Benedict? When did we start calling it...
Eggs Benny.
The Benny.
The Benny.
Or can I get a Benny? I mean, I know that's the abbreviation and we like abbreviations. Parma, Parmigiana, but it strikes me like on menus, the Benny. I'm not ordering the Benny because I feel like it's not... People
just don't have time to say all those syllables. But it's also become a genre in its own right. So anything that involves eggs and muffins can be a Benedict, but it's a spin on the Benedict.
Is Hollandaise required to be there?
Probably Hollandaise has to be there unless you're like whatever FODMAPs thing means that you can't eat the Hollandaise for some. Like Hollandaise probably isn't vegan, is it? It's got eggs in it.
I'd like to think it's got something.
It's a sauce with it. It's basically mayonnaise, which is made with eggs.
Yeah.
So it's eggs with egg sauce, which is a weird thing when you think about it that way, right? Like the eggs are marinated.
Can I please get the eggs? Yes, with egg sauce, please.
I want to cook these eggs in the liquefied bodies of their dead comrades. That's what I'm doing with these eggs, which is kind of fucked up. But then then there's the salmon ones, and there's the ham ones, and there's the tomato ones.
I like how now
they've all got different names.
Well, in my case, being veggie, you now get them with the halloumi.
Right.
Although I was in a cafe the other day that wouldn't do replacement for meat with, and they go, no, you'll have to. The narrative was something like, no, we don't do replacements, but you can order, mate. So you're taking it out and
just put it on. It's right there. Just put it on. Anyway, there are lots and lots of different variations on it. They're like martinis, right? Where you go into a place and they go, we have 48 martinis, and I'm like, Damien, we don't need your spin on the martini, right? You as the bartender at this particular joint at Centrepoint Tower in Sydney, your input on the martini is not required.
It is nominative determinism. Yeah. You are Damien Martini, and we want to get what we want.
The martini has gone pretty well for several hundred years without you going, oh, maybe we could freshen it up with some rosemary. I don't need any rosemary in there, Damien. Martini, it's cold gin. It's not hard to do. Just make the gin cold. Other Hall of Fame, I don't think we made enough of the fact that we had the Dicks in the middle this week, Big Dick and Little Dick. Richard Kettleby, Richard Illingworth, out there together as they were, 10, 12 years ago on White Line Wireless when we first coined the phrase. Great to see the Dicks working in tandem, in unison.
Big Dick and Little Dick. I was banging on the window with Brad at one point trying to get Kettleby's attention during one of the rain delays. Like, hey, over here, mate.
What?
Tell us what's going on. We wanted to know how long until the resumption was.
Yep.
Because he was kind of talking to to Donovan Kosh, who has been the fourth umpire. I wanted to nominate Donovan Kosh's umbrella into the Hall of Fame. Did a lot of work this week. A lot of prodding. A lot of up and down.
2 Dicks and 1 umbrella. That's the story of the Brisbane Test. And lastly,
before we go,
did Nathan Lyon know that Ashwin was retiring? Because he talked to him for about 45 minutes this morning.
No, there was a bit of that going on today. Jadeja and Ashwin shared a big cuddle on the bench. Lyon was down there talking to both. I think he probably spoke to the Aussies.
I just thought he was like picking them for information about spin bowling because he talked to Jadeja for half an hour as well at the end of the game. But
do you know what these look like?
Ashwin, what, the sunnies?
These sunnies look like the type that Ashwin's wore forever. They're probably not the same.
They might
They're
be.
the Glenn Maxwell T20
Ashwin
sunnies. They've got some finger marks on them now.
A pair of Glenn Maxwell sunnies at 10% off
using
our offer code.
T20vision.com/final word. These are the perfect Christmas gift for you. I've got the big ones on today. I've had them on a little bit anyway.
They're big, they're gold, they look like you're driving a flying car in the future.
The Doc Brown, Glenn Maxwell, get them in a photo shoot together. I'm not entirely sure that Christopher Lloyd's still with us.
I don't think he is.
I feel like we would know if he was still with us.
I think where he's gone, he doesn't need roads.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, he's in the big hoverboard on the sky, moving around with that. Anyway, you work that out.
But maybe he is. There was a photo of him with Michael J. not that long ago, so maybe he's still. Maybe we might be falsely advertising his death.
This isn't like
this isn't Twitter.
Who was it when Richard Wilkins killed off? It was the day that Michael Jackson died, and he killed someone off on the Today Show.
Jeff Goldblum's been killed a few times.
Jeff Goldblum. That was the great man Richard Wilkins, who I'm pretty sure has got an Order of Australia these days. Should have got one years ago for confirming the short jocular conversation between Peter Garrett and Steve Price in the airport in the 2007 election campaign. That's what he should have got the Order of Australia for.
Jeff Goldblum, he made chaos theory sexy.
We're rambling here. Should we go?
I think that's it. We're probably at the end of the show. This has been the final word. So a couple of things. If you like the show, patreon.com/thefinalword.
You're still here.
You can join up and become part of it. You get the ad-free feed. You can get on the Discord. You can have a nice time.
We have other stuff. I've got the live show with Maxie and Ricky Ponting. Ricky Ponting, come along. Hi-Fi Bar. Max Watt's House of Music, as it's called these days. Guts of town, across the road from Town Hall. Few tickets were floating about. Get one immediately. Bring your mates. Let's have a great night in Melbourne on Sunday, the 22nd before Christmas, the 7th of January in Sydney as well. Guests being announced tomorrow for that, and it's a belter. What else did I want to say? We've got a story time coming up. We've got a weekly show coming up, and we have our Christmas interview locked in.
Yes.
And it's a former Australian great.
Yes, it is. It is going to be a good one. We won't tell you who it is because we want you to open the feed on Christmas Day and enjoy yourselves. Christmas Eve, whatever. It might be Christmas Day somewhere. On the Marshall Islands, it'll be Christmas Day. We'll be back with the Daily Show from the 26th. There'll be previews. There'll be other stuff. Tomorrow. Keep an eye on the feed. There'll always be something there to keep you entertained. This has been the Final Word Daily. Geoff Lemon, Adam Collins from a very soggy Brisbane signing out. See you next time.
Farewell.